Welcome to episode 5 of the Spectre report. This is M. I must tell you about something very terrible and urgent in this episode. Unfortunately, there exists a technology in our world that could be far more devastating than nuclear weapons, and it is perhaps already being wielded by the enemies of freedom and democracy. What's worse is that there is a chance that it has already been used on everyone who has taken a vaccine. Do not panic. But we have to talk about this possibility because our citizens have been left exposed to this danger. Do not turn off this video until it is finished. What I'm talking about is referred to, in Chinese military, government, and scientific circles, as precision medicine, or Jingju Shui. Chinese military leaders have, for many years already, been discussing the possibility of putting DNA coding onto a tiny nanoparticle of various materials. Such a nanoparticle could be inserted into a human body in a variety of ways, such as with an injection, and it would be virtually undetectable. What's more, scientists in China have been developing the ability to encode the DNA in various ways so that it can cause degenerative illnesses. Such degenerative illnesses would appear to be naturally occurring. For example, it's possible that upon receiving the nanoparticle with DNA into the bloodstream, an individual could, over time, perhaps 5 or 10 years, develop an illness such as a debilitating cancer. And it's possible that they can be very specific with this practice. Chinese military leaders have already discussed, on record, encoding DNA in such ways as to target specific ethnicities. Chinese military officers have, in the past, expressed interest in precision medicine as a perfect weapon to use against the greatest threat to the power of the Chinese Communist Party, the free democracies of the world led by the United States. You and me. Our loved ones. Our children. It appears that our intelligence and security services have been caught sleeping on this one. Perhaps it is due to a lack of focus on China as a potential threat. Perhaps it's due to a lack of Chinese linguists in the security agencies. Perhaps it was sabotage or subversion by traitors hidden within those agencies. Or perhaps it is due to gross negligence or incompetence. The US intelligence services have been prone to showing incompetence in recent years, like when the US Central Intelligence Agency burned entire networks of agents within China, or when they claimed it would take much longer for the Taliban to take over Afghanistan. This is not the time to be casting blame. But we want you to be fully aware that intelligence and security services are fallible, so when they say something, do not take it as gospel. Okay? Now let's move on. We must take a hard look at this clear and present danger to not only our national security and our freedoms, but also to our very lives. Since the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union have both possessed terrifying bioweapons such as smallpox. However, the problem with using bioweapons has always been that they have the potential to damage the side who released them, not just the intended target. Nobody could win a biowar just like no one could win a nuclear war. Thankfully, the bioweapons were never used. However, with the development of precision medicine, this could change. The world has become far more dangerous than ever before. When the COVID-19 virus emerged, leaders in Washington, D.C. and other capitals around the world were warned that it originated from the now infamous lab in Wuhan, China. In fact, they were warned about it years before it even occurred. Records show that French diplomats warned the U.S. State Department of the danger at the Wuhan Institute of Virology well before the virus emerged. Keep in mind that French scientists were working in the Wuhan lab from its inception, but they were eventually kicked out. Television shows and video games were also made on the virus topic, most likely to give warning to the public through unofficial channels, in the years leading up to COVID's release. But people in leadership positions refused to acknowledge the threat. Perhaps in many cases this was for political reasons. But we can't rule out more sinister motives either. Many of those in media, governments, and international organizations like the World Health Organization, some wittingly and some unwittingly, pushed the Chinese Communist Party's own narrative that the virus was naturally occurring. What's worse is that the full story likely still has yet to unfold. There is a possibility that the virus was intentionally released and made to look like an accident. You might be asking why. The Chinese leadership has plenty of motive, and we will discuss that in depth in later episodes. But what's important to be aware of right now is that there's a chance that the virus, and the media's reaction to it, was designed with the specific intention of causing a mass panic. That mass panic would have many citizens begging for vaccines, and many governments mandating the vaccines. We have already watched this occur. However, the pharmaceutical companies developing the vaccines have supply chains that come out of China. Thus, China could have easily slipped nanoparticles with DNA coding into a wide variety of the materials being put into the vaccines, or into the devices used to administer the vaccines to people abroad. The fact that China has developed its own vaccine is noteworthy in this case. Keep in mind that if this has indeed occurred, it would not be the first time that China has slipped something sinister into its exports. For example, it was discovered in recent years that Chinese motherboard manufacturers were slipping tiny, nearly undetectable chips into the motherboards that they were making. Those chips gave the Chinese government backdoor access into any computers with those motherboards in them. But what we are talking about here is much worse. It is an existential threat. It could be catastrophic, and it's possible that it might have already happened. If it has, we face a grim future. But even if it hasn't, action must be taken to prevent it from happening. We are calling for a greater degree of scrutiny before vaccine approval, and much better security for the vaccines. Recently leaked internal Pfizer emails exchanged between executives at the company reveal that they are not sure exactly what's in their vaccines because, in their own words, they have very long supply chains. The vaccine companies must investigate and reveal to the public what parts of the vaccines were sourced from China or other authoritarian countries that could be collaborating with them. Also, every bit of material, every needle, and every syringe needs to be checked with the highest technology methods and the utmost scrutiny. Finally, vaccine companies must not be allowed to continue sourcing anything from China. The potential consequences of ignoring this threat are far too severe. The CCP, a brutal authoritarian and expansionist government that rules over a country that does not have enough natural resources within its own borders to feed its own population, has many good reasons to quietly kill every single one of us who live in the free and democratic countries. Our very existence delegitimizes their power, and China has a great need for natural resources and farmland. Ladies and gentlemen, call your congressmen. Demand that they investigate this possibility. Also, tell them to stop any further vaccine mandates. That is all for now. Sincerely, M.